It's 1909, County Offaly, Ireland. A work crew has been hired to do renovations on a long-abandoned castle. Most of it is ruins, roofless, overgrown, forgotten. But the job is steady and the pay is reasonable, so the men get to work. One of the workers is clearing debris in an old stone chapel, the upper floor of the castle's main tower. It's a bleak, cold room. The walls are stained with centuries of damp. The floor is rotting timber and cracked flagstone. And then he finds something odd. Tucked beneath a section of crumbling floorboard is a trapdoor. Small, heavy, partially concealed. The worker calls the others over. They pry it open. Below the trapdoor is a shaft dropping straight down into the earth, about 8 feet deep. And at the bottom, just barely visible in the dim light, are wooden spikes. Someone built this deliberately. This is an oubliette. You put someone in here, and you forgot they existed. The workers start carefully removing what's inside. They fill one wheelbarrow, then another, then another. 3 full cartloads of human bones before they hit the bottom. Dozens of people, maybe hundreds. And among the ancient bones and decay, the workers found one final item that turned their stomachs cold. A pocket watch from the 1800s. This pit hadn't just been used in medieval times. Someone had been thrown in here within living memory. Welcome back. If you're new here, this channel is about the darkest, most violent, most disturbing histories hidden inside the walls of the world's castles. And we are starting with Leap Castle, located in County Offaly in the heart of Ireland. According to tradition, the castle was named Leap of the O'Bannons, Leim Ui Panain, in the 13th century. When the name was translated from Irish to English, it was spelled Leap. But locals continued to use the short, sharp pronunciation derived from the Irish Leim. According to tradition, when 2 men were rivals for chieftainship, there was a test, a nearby rock outcrop, and the 2 claimants had to jump. Legend says 2 brother chieftains competed for leadership by leaping off the rocky outcrop. Whoever survived, whoever made the leap, became chief. The other one didn't walk away. That is the origin story of this place. Competition decided by who's willing to risk death. The castle itself was built around the 15th century, though some elements may be older, by the O'Carroll clan, one of the most powerful Gaelic Irish dynasties in Leinster. The O'Bannons built it, but the O'Carrolls owned it. And the O'Carrolls were not a peaceful family. Medieval Irish clan politics worked like this. Power was contested by every brother, cousin, and uncle, and the disputes were resolved, not in court. The O'Carrolls had a particular reputation for ruthlessness, betrayal, massacre, and Leap Castle was the stage for some of the worst of it. The most famous room in Leap Castle is the Bloody Chapel. It earned that name in around 1532 after Mulroney O'Carroll died. 2 sons became rivals, one a warrior, the other a priest named Thaddeus. The warrior brother walked in while Thaddeus was celebrating Mass. He walked straight to the altar and drove his sword through his own brother's body mid-ceremony. The priest fell forward across the altar, dead. There is no sanctuary here, no line that will not be crossed for power. The room has been called the Bloody Chapel ever since. 500 years later, it still has that name, and it sits directly above the oubliette. But the chapel wasn't the only scene of O'Carroll violence. There are accounts of at least one feast where invited guests were cut down at the dinner table, welcomed in friendship, seated, fed, and then slaughtered. This is the house that built the oubliette under the chapel. Now you understand why. Let's go back to that 1909 discovery, because now that you know what the O'Carrolls were capable of, the oubliette makes a horrible kind of sense. An oubliette is one of the most psychologically cruel structures ever designed. It's not a dungeon with bars, it's not a cell. There's no door, no window, no light. It is a pit. And at Leap Castle, the oubliette was specifically designed to be lethal on entry. Those wooden spikes at the bottom, you didn't fall onto a soft floor. You were impaled. If you were lucky and somehow landed between them, you'd find yourself standing in the dark, unable to climb out, with no food or water. When the workers removed those 3 cartloads of bones in 1909, historians and anthropologists tried to estimate how many individuals were represented. Some estimates say dozens, some say more than 100. One account suggested the workers stopped counting. The bones showed no particular pattern. Men, women, no clear age range. These were people who had been brought here specifically to disappear. And then there was the pocket watch, dating to the 1800s, found at the bottom of the pit. This pit hadn't just been used in medieval times. Whatever family was occupying Leap Castle in the 1800s, they knew about this pit, and they used it. Even after the remains were removed and the pit cleaned out, workers reported something they couldn't explain. The smell. A thick, heavy smell of decay that seemed to come from inside the walls. Not from the pit, from everywhere. That smell is still reported by visitors to this day. By the 1600s, the O'Carroll clan's power had collapsed and Leap Castle landed with an Anglo-Irish family called the Darbys. They lived there through the Georgian and Victorian eras. Now here's where the story takes a turn that is genuinely terrifying. One of the last Darby women to live in the castle was Mildred Darby. She was a writer who wrote Gothic horror fiction, Victorian dark fiction, the kind of woman who was drawn to the macabre, which makes it very interesting that she was also the first person to publicly describe the supernatural entity that haunts Leap Castle to this day. In 1909, Mildred Darby published an article describing what she had experienced. She called it the elemental. She described seeing a dark, shapeless mass, roughly human height, a thing that seemed to breathe. Its decomposed face brushed against her cheek. And the smell was the smell of rotting flesh. She said it was something older, an elemental. But here's what's harder to explain. She's not the last person to describe it. Paranormal investigators and the current owners describe the same thing. A dark shape, a presence that isn't a person, a smell of decomposition that appears and disappears with no source. Something in Leap Castle does not feel human. The castle has a whole cast of them. The most disturbing is known as the Red Lady. She's seen walking the corridors, always carrying a dagger raised above her head, as if mid-strike. Local tradition holds she was a young woman imprisoned inside Leap, forced to give birth, and her baby was killed. She died inside the castle walls, always silent, always with the blade. Then there's Emily, described as the ghost of a young girl who fell or was pushed down one of the castle's steep stairwells. She's not frightening. Visitors describe her as curious, even playful. Children on tours have reportedly asked, "Who is that?" She's still here, still a child, still in the castle. She never got to leave. And then there are the shadow figures in the grounds, believed to be the remnants of soldiers killed during the many sieges and battles fought over this castle across the centuries. Leap Castle collects its dead, apparently. Not one ghost, not two. An entire population. The Darby family's ownership came to a violent end in 1922. Ireland was in the middle of a brutal conflict, the Irish Civil War. Anti-treaty IRA forces set fire to the castle. Everything inside, furnishings, paintings, family history, burned. The roof collapsed. The castle became an open ruin, left to crumble for decades. Locals left it alone. Animals reportedly refused to enter the grounds. Leap Castle was now a ruin. But it wasn't empty. In the 1990s, an Irish-Australian musician named Sean Ryan purchased Leap Castle. He and his wife Chiara have spent over 30 years restoring it, stone by stone. They live there, in the castle. This is their home. Sean Ryan doesn't deny the strangeness. He talks about sounds he can't explain, the feeling of being watched. But he's also said something remarkable. He's made peace with it. That whatever is in the castle, the elemental, the Red Lady, they seem to have accepted him. He treats the castle with respect. He doesn't try to pretend the history didn't happen. And in return, it lets him live there. The castle is now open for private tours. Every team reports something. Equipment going haywire. Feelings of being followed. You can feel it in the stone. Leap Castle. A name chosen because men used to jump from a cliff. A chapel where a priest was murdered by his own brother. A hidden pit that swallowed dozens of human beings. A Victorian woman who encountered something in the dark. Generation after generation of violence until the walls themselves seem to hold the memory. Some places are just wrong, and Leap Castle has been wrong for a very long time. Stay curious, stay a little unsettled, and I'll see you at the next one.